What if you could get the look, feel, and performance of a premium knife, but without the premium price tag? Today we're going to look at 8 premium EDC blades and their budget twins to answer that question. They aren't necessarily going to be one-to-one equivalents, and you will have different steels with these, but they share enough in design and ergos to scratch the same itch. As always, links to the knives you see here will be down in the description, and if I've done an individual review on any of these knives, or maybe a head-to-head comparison, I will drop that link up here so that you can check that out for a more detailed breakdown if you're interested. With that out of the way, let's jump into our first pair, and as you can see, this one actually is a one-to-one equivalent, and that is the Demko AD20.5. So here we have the premium version. This is a 20 CV in their slicer blade. I actually got this for $150, so I got a screaming deal on this one when it was on clearance. But these normally run in the $200 to $250 range, and you can also get them in S35VN and 3V. The budget version over here, you can get in AUS 10A, which is what this is, or D2. So obviously the blade steels on these are different, and that is the primary difference, because in both the premium and the budget models, you can get these in either the shark's foot blade shape. It's basically a sheep's foot, but you know, the whole shark thing, they call it a shark's foot, or a clip point. So really the primary difference here is the steels, because even you can see the lock is the same, pretty much the same knife. And both of these are wearing aftermarket scales, so neither of them come like this, just for point of reference. But that is the Demko AD20.5. So let's get into our next one. And this one will actually do knives from different brands. And for that, first we have the Spyderco Sage 6, and this comes in S30V. There's also a S90V version of this, and it uses Spyderco's, they call it a button-operated compression lock, but that is the Sage 6. So if you've seen my video comparing these two, you're probably expecting what the next one is going to be, and that is the Vosteed Porcupine. Now this one comes in 14C28N, so definitely a more budget steel, but they both use that button-operated compression lock or liner lock, depending on what you want to call it. Now the Vosteed calls it their top liner lock. So, you know, same lock, different name, basically. The blade shapes on these is similar, although obviously not identical. And also the Spyderco uses washers in its pivot, and the Vosteed Porcupine uses bearings. But overall, the ergos are very close. Especially in this forward choil section, the grip is going to be very similar, very comparable in how you hold them, how you operate them. Just really, like I said, not a one-to-one comparison, but they are pretty darn close. So with that in mind, I think that makes the Vosteed a great budget alternative to the Sage 6 if you don't want to spend Sage 6 money. So there's those two. Next, we're going to go for your fifth pocket, and that is with the Spyderco Lil Native. Now, this comes base in S30V, Spy 27, and there's also a 15V sprint run out there on these right now. And 15V, to my understanding, with Crucible closing, 15V is not going to be made anymore. So if you want a 15V version, definitely get it right now. Now, mine is actually an S45VN version. This was a KnifeJoy exclusive, and it originally had pink scales, which I swapped out. But what is a good budget alternative to the Lil Native? My argument is going to be the CIVIVI Baby Banter 2. Now, obviously, as opposed to these first two, this is a different lock, because this is a crossbar lock as opposed to a compression lock. However, the design on these and how you grip them with the front choil, I think it makes them extremely comparable, especially with the aluminum scales I added to this one, and this one coming stock with aluminum scales. Size-wise, grip-wise, I really don't think you're going to find a better equivalent for the Spyderco Lil Native than you get in the CIVIVI Baby Banter 2. And the awesome thing with CIVIVI Baby Banter 2 is you're coming in at almost exactly half the price on that too. And this one comes in Nitro V. So that is the Spyderco Lil Native and the CIVIVI Baby Banter. Now we're going to move on to fixed blades, which if you've watched enough of my videos, you probably know I'm a fixed blade guy. But the first one we have here is the Rainier Fastpak. Now this is an awesome ultralight knife, and it comes in Elmax steel, and you can actually get it without the scales here, but I absolutely love these micarta scales. They're very comfortable, very ergonomic. Absolutely love this. If I had to pick a favorite ultralight knife, I think this would probably be it. Now, what knife will make a good budget version of this? I am going to go with the Kizer Phasmids. Now you can see very, very similar in size. Blade shape is definitely different, but both are extremely lightweight. I think the Phasmids may actually be a tiny bit lighter, just holding it in my hand. But even though the overall blade shape is different, you cannot ignore the similarities in these in their design and just how comfortable they are. And the Phasmids comes in at $55 compared to $150 for the Rainier Fastpak. Now, again, you're going from Elmax steel to AEBL steel. Now, AEBL is a solid budget steel, but you know, it's not Elmax for sure. But if you don't want to spend Fastpak money, I think the Phasmids is a great option. Next, we're going to move on to a little more modern take on a fixed blade, and that is the Buck Alpha Scout Pro. And this comes in S35VN. Now, with the Alpha Scout Pro, you actually kind of have a built-in budget option in their line, and that is the Alpha Scout Select. And that comes in 420HC steel, and its price is $65. So it's very much in the budget range compared to the $180 Pro. But that would be too easy. I didn't want to take that route because I already did that one time with the Demko. So what did I choose for that? My budget alternative for the Alpha Scout Pro is going to be the Schrade Adder. Now, these are not identical in blade shape, obviously, but they are very, very similar in their blade shape. Now, the Adder comes in AUS 10A steel, so a very, very solid budget steel, but definitely, you know, not S35VN. But the overall ergos of these are so similar. Very, very similar design. This one has a little bit more of a thumb ramp, but again, ergos are going to be extremely similar here. And the crazy thing about this is, the Buck Alpha Scout Pro comes in at $180. The Schrade Adder with AUS 10A steel, which is a very solid budget steel, comes in at $20. And I mean, I don't even know how they can remotely get it that cheap, but I'm super impressed by that. And the Adder, for context, it comes in at less than a third of the price of the budget Alpha Scout Select. So this is a crazy, crazy budget deal on this. So that is the Buck Alpha Scout Pro and the Schrade Adder. Next, we're going to move on to a knife that really by itself probably qualifies as a budget knife for most people because it comes in under $100, and that is the ESEE Izula. Now, this is the S35VN version, and then these usually will run you about $95. I think I actually paid like $85 for mine, as I said, some people kind of consider this a budget knife anyway, and if you get the 1095 steel version, it can come in even under $70. But even though it's under $100, I'm considering this a premium knife because it's S35VN steel, which is a premium steel. And since it's a premium steel, I'm calling it a premium knife. So with that being the case, what is a great budget alternative to the Izula? And my choice for that is the Swisstech Leicht. And I'm maybe mispronouncing that. I actually went on YouTube and tried to find the proper German pronunciation, but I am going to go with Leicht. And so the Leicht is a D2 steel blade, and you can see very, very similar blade shape there. Now, my Izula is actually wearing extended scale, so this is closer in size to the Izula 2. You can see where the regular back of the Izula ends. So actually the Leicht is probably very much closer in size to the standard Izula, maybe a tiny bit longer. I would say it's kind of between the two because I cannot get a full 4-finger grip on the Izula without the extended scales, but I just barely can with the Leicht. Now, Again, this is D2 blade steel as opposed to S35VN. And this is a coated blade, which the 1095 versions of the Izula will come with that, but the S35VN versions come with a non-coated blade, which is actually a big part of the reason that I chose that. But this is the ESEE Izula and the Swisstech Leicht. Great budget option for what is already kind of a budget option. And last but not least, we have a knife that is probably going to be one that some of you are not familiar with, and that is the Kunwu Stiffy P. Now, this is not a super popular knife necessarily because, you know, being a fixed blade, and it's just not a well-known one. But the reason I bought this is this actually comes in Vanadis 8 steel, which is also a little bit more of an obscure steel. And if you aren't familiar with Vanadis 8, its properties are very similar to like a K390 or a 10V steel. So this has a awesome balance of edge retention and toughness. Really where it falls short is corrosion resistance, but even there, the corrosion resistance on this is still higher than D2 steel, if I remember right. So you're still getting some decent corrosion resistance for a non-stainless steel. And what is the budget alternative that I chose for this one? It is the Azusa Smallmouth. Now you can see the blade shapes are definitely slightly different, but still pretty similar. But what really made this a great budget option for me is the ergonomics are so close with this little front choil up here that you choke up into. The blades are similar blade lengths, and really because of the scales, they even kind of look similar too. But the Azusa Smallmouth here is $63 as opposed to the Kunwu Stiffy P, which is either $130 or $140, depending on if you get one of the coated versions or not. Now, I'm usually not one for coated blades, and they didn't have any of the coated ones when I was shopping because I actually wanted it on this, because Kunwu does an amazing like polished DLC coating that just looks incredible. And if I had the option to buy it again, I would definitely go with that, but I still like the satin finish. But the ergos are just so close on these. I thought there's no way I couldn't consider this a great budget alternative to the Stiffy P. So again, that is the Kunwu Stiffy P and the Azusa Smallmouth. So there you have it, 8 premium EDC knives with their 8 budget alternatives that come surprisingly close in ergos, design, and performance. So whether you're after a top tier steel or just a solid value, there is something for you here with just about every budget. And if you've got a favorite pairing from this list, or if you know of a great budget alternative that I missed, drop it down in the comments because I would love to hear it. And if you found this video helpful, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more EDC gear reviews and comparisons just like this one. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next video.